The house smelled faintly of vanilla and fresh flowers, a gentle sweetness that mingled with the nervous excitement buzzing through my chest. Balloons in pastel pink and gold floated near the ceiling, their ribbons swaying lazily as if nodding in approval. The dining table, polished to a mirror, like sheen, was arranged with delicate plates, sparkling glasses, and a cake that seemed too beautiful to cut. Its frosting sculpted into tiny roses, each one perfect, almost mocking in its flawlessness. I had spent weeks planning this birthday. Every detail mattered, the playlist, the lighting, the carefully curated guest list. This year was supposed to be different. I wasn't just celebrating another year. I was celebrating survival, growth, and the quiet victories that had brought me here. Past birthdays had been marred by forgetfulness, half-hearted greetings, or empty promises from people I had thought were friends. But tonight, I promised myself tonight would be perfect. As the first guests began to arrive, my heart fluttered with anticipation. I greeted each hug, each smile, each warm, happy birthday, with what I hoped was a genuine sparkle in my eyes. There were friends from work, friends from college, even a few neighbors I had grown surprisingly fond of over the years. They brought gifts wrapped in shiny paper, their laughter filling corners of the house I had longed to see animated. But beneath the surface of celebration, there was a strange dissonance I couldn't ignore. Subtle, fleeting, a glance too sharp, a laugh a second too long, whispers exchanged behind hands. I tried to push it aside, blaming my nerves, imagining shadows where there were none. After all, this was my night. This was supposed to be happiness. I poured myself a glass of champagne, the bubbles tickling my nose as I sipped, forcing a smile when the music shifted to a slow, melodic tune that tugged at memories I hadn't visited in years. I moved around the room, making small talk, asking questions, complimenting outfits. I laughed at jokes, some of them faintly familiar, others unfamiliar, yet charming. Still, the odd feeling persisted, a tiny prickle at the base of my spine. I excused myself to the kitchen to grab a glass of water, thinking a pause would help. The doorbell rang again, echoing through the hallway, and I turned, expecting another friend. But when I approached my phone, the screen lit up with a message I hadn't expected, a link, marked simply, "You need to see this." Curiosity collided with a strange sense of dread. Something about the anonymity of it, the lack of explanation, made my chest tighten. My hand hovered over the screen, heart hammering, mind whispering that perhaps it was just a prank, some harmless birthday tease. Yet deep down, an instinct quiet but insistent warned me that this was no ordinary message. I clicked the link. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my perfect night, my friends, my life, shattered quietly, like glass breaking in slow motion. The screen went black for a moment before video began to play. The lighting was dim, the camera shaky, as if recorded secretly. At first, I couldn't make out what I was seeing. Then a voice familiar, unmistakably familiar, laughed. It was Ethan. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan, my boyfriend of 3 years, the one who had promised to make my birthday the most unforgettable night of my life. The same Ethan who had spent the past week helping me plan every detail, who had kissed my forehead that morning and whispered, "You deserve the world, birthday girl." But in the video, his voice was different, mocking, careless. "She's so easy to fool," he said, a smirk curling his lips as he clinked glasses with someone off camera. "She actually thinks I'm doing all this because I love her. God, you should see her face when she talks about the party." A woman's laugh followed. I froze, the camera shifted slightly, and my world tilted on its axis. Sitting beside him was Maya, my closest friend since high school, the one I'd trusted with every secret, every heartbreak, every fear. Maya leaned in close to Ethan, tracing her finger along the rim of her glass. "You think she'll ever find out?" she teased, her voice low, almost affectionate. Ethan chuckled. "Not a chance. She's too naive for that. Once the party's over, I'll find a way to end it cleanly. Maybe I'll say I need space." My pulse thundered in my ears. Every word sliced through me, cold and precise. I stared at the screen, numb, as Maya laughed again. My laugh mirrored, but twisted, cruel. "I can't believe she's throwing a party for herself." Maya said, shaking her head. It's kind of sad, don't you think? All this effort just for attention. My fingers trembled so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The video continued for another minute, enough to see them kiss, enough to know this wasn't a cruel misunderstanding. It was deliberate, real. When the screen finally went black, the silence that followed was deafening. The laughter from the living room suddenly sounded far away, like echoes from another life. I stood frozen in the kitchen, phone clutched tightly in my hand, heart crumbling in slow, unbearable waves. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was old footage, maybe it was fake, but deep down I knew. The way Ethan's voice dipped when he lied, the way Maya's eyes had avoided mine all week, every detail I'd ignored suddenly made sense. A knot of nausea twisted in my stomach. My birthday, my day, had turned into a stage for betrayal. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and opened the event group chat. My fingers moved on their own, typing a message I never thought I'd send. Parties canceled. Please go home. I hit send and felt my chest cave in. Through the window, I could see the first hints of confusion ripple through the crowd. People whispering, checking their phones. I didn't care. I turned off the lights in the kitchen, letting the darkness swallow me. The music still played faintly in the background, but I no longer heard it. All I could hear were their voices, replaying in my head, again and again. And beneath the pain, beneath the humiliation, something new began to stir. Quiet, cold, deliberate. A need for answers, a need for justice, a need for revenge. The laughter had faded. The last of the guests had left, murmuring their confusion as they stepped out into the night. I didn't bother explaining. What could I have said that the two people I loved and trusted most had turned my birthday into a cruel joke? The silence that followed was unbearable. The house, once glowing with music and chatter, now felt hollow. The balloons hung limply in the corners, the cake untouched. I sat on the edge of the sofa, staring at the flickering candlelight that cast long, distorted shadows on the walls. I replayed the video over and over, even though I didn't need to. Every word was already carved into my memory, like scars etched too deep to fade. Ethan's mocking tone, Maya's laughter, the kiss, the betrayal. My tears came quietly at first, then harder, until I could barely breathe. My heart felt heavy, like it was collapsing under its own weight. How could they? How could people who'd seen me at my lowest, who'd held my hand through storms, choose to be the ones who broke me? I remembered the night I met Ethan, how gentle his smile had been, how he'd promised I could always trust him. I remembered how Maya had sat with me through sleepless nights, whispering that she'd always have my back. Now those same memories felt poisonous. Every laugh, every hug, every shared secret. They weren't comfort anymore. They were knives. At some point, I stopped crying. The tears had done their part, washing away the shock, leaving behind something rarer. Emptiness. Then beneath it, something colder. I walked into my bedroom, pulled open the drawer where I kept old photos, pictures of the three of us smiling, arms wrapped around each other, pretending we were unbreakable. One by one, I tore them apart. The sound of ripping paper was oddly satisfying, rhythmic, almost calming. But I didn't want to destroy everything. I didn't want to erase the evidence. I wanted them to see. I wanted them to understand what it meant to shatter someone's trust so completely. So I sat down, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red, my mascara streaked. I barely recognized the woman staring back. But behind the exhaustion, there was something else, a quiet strength I hadn't noticed before. I thought about Maya's smirk, Ethan's lies, and the way they had laughed at my kindness. They thought I was naive. They thought I'd break quietly. They were wrong. I picked up my phone again, not to text them, but to scroll. To find traces of the truth I had ignored. Photos, messages, comments that suddenly seemed suspicious. The patterns were all there. I just hadn't wanted to see them before. My hands trembled, but not from fear this time, from purpose. I didn't know exactly how I would do it yet, but one thing was certain. They would regret underestimating me. I blew out the candles that had burned themselves into stubs, watching the smoke curl into the air like a whispered promise. This wasn't the end, this was the beginning, and when I was done, neither Ethan nor Maya would ever forget the night they chose to betray me. A week passed. 7 long, sleepless nights of planning, replaying every detail, every lie, until my heartbreak hardened into something sharper. Resolve. Ethan had tried calling me dozens of times, his messages pouring in with forced concern. I just want to talk. Please, it's not what you think. Can we meet? And Maya, ever the actress, had sent a pitiful text. You misunderstood. Please don't ruin our friendship over a mistake. A mistake. The word made me laugh. I ignored them both, but I didn't stay silent. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Exposed, humiliated, helpless. And I knew exactly how. Ethan's company had an annual charity gala coming up. He'd been bragging about being one of the speakers for months. It was the perfect stage, the perfect irony. I still had that anonymous video after all. With steady fingers, I trimmed it, cut away everything unnecessary, leaving only the damning moments, their laughter, the mockery, the kiss. I didn't add a caption or voiceover. I didn't need to. Truth didn't need decoration. On the night of the gala, I dressed carefully. A simple black dress, understated yet striking. When I walked into the ballroom, heads turned, whispers followed. Ethan froze mid-conversation when he saw me. His eyes widened, and for a brief, delicious second, I saw a guilt flicker across his face. Didn't expect to see you here, he said, forcing a smile. You look incredible. Thank you, I replied softly, meeting his gaze. I came to support the cause. He relaxed a little, mistaking my calm for forgiveness. Maya appeared beside him, all fake warmth and shallow charm. I'm so glad you came, she said, touching my arm like nothing had happened. I smiled, a gesture so controlled it almost hurt me too. When the lights dimmed and the presentation began, I slipped away to the tech booth where my contact, a sympathetic coworker of Ethan's who'd heard rumors, was waiting. It took less than a minute to cue the file. As Ethan walked on stage, confidently taking the microphone, the projector behind him flickered to life. He began his speech unaware, then the video started. The first laugh echoed through the speakers. His laugh. Then Maya's. The crowd fell silent. The images played out in cruel, undeniable clarity. Ethan mocking me, Maya leaning close, the kiss. Gasps rippled through the audience like waves. Ethan turned, pale as paper. Turn that off, he shouted, but it was too late. The truth was out. I stood at the back of the room, watching him stumble over his words, watching Maya bolt for the exit. The same people who once adored them now stared with disgust, whispering, pointing. It wasn't loud revenge. It wasn't chaos or destruction. It was quiet, clean, poetic. I slipped out unnoticed before the video even ended. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around me, gentle and freeing. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need explanations. I had reclaimed my dignity, my peace, and something even more precious, myself. As I walked away from the glittering building, my phone buzzed with missed calls and frantic messages I'd never read. Because this time, I wasn't looking back.